huge thanks to everyone. I know it's been kind of a marathon of things, and I feel very grateful to be the last speaker here at this, PeopleFirst Global Summit. So thank you to everyone at Inspiring Workplaces. This is super exciting. So without further ado, let's get started. As we were just talking about, the purpose that I'm here today is I really want to talk about internal communications. And the title of my presentation here is Stop Treating Internal Communications like an Afterthought. But really, what I want to take away is that, I was thinking about the name, and actually I kind of want to focus on this idea that, like, at its core, design the communication or your culture gets designed by accident. And I think this is the way that I can encourage everyone to really think about internal comms in a deep way, that if you don't spend time doing it and you don't spend time focusing on it, your culture and your employee communication will be designed without you, and you'll be left in the dust. So my journey at Royal Ambulance, for a little bit of context, I've been with the company for almost 9 years at this point, and it's because I actually was an EMT there when I started. It was a very bit ago. So here's some pictures of me when I was a wee baby doing EMT things. And, I've been so lucky that we've been so blessed as a great workforce development company that, I've been able to kind of like move on up. I actually have I'm classically trained in marketing communications. I kind of fell into being an EMT way back when. It was one of my first jobs, and I ended up loving it. So it's kind of cool to kind of marry that here for context. Another thing that I think is interesting is when I do a lot of talks about internal comms, people are like, but you says marketing in your title. That is true. I didn't set out to do internal comms. I ended up here, probably at this PeopleFirst Summit, but also thinking about internal comms by necessity. So, at Royal, we saw this cost of unstructured internal messaging, how it was siloed across departments, how different people were talking about things, wasn't cohesive. And we realized that, we kind of had a system problem with talking internally, and we decided to invest resources in fixing the problem. So, I really have this dual role where I kind of view our team members as like one of our customers we market to. So it's this really kind of internal role where I look in and out in both ways. So a little bit about Royal, and I think this is kind of, we'll set the stage for kind of giving some context here, is I have in the title here, Culture Fractures Fast Without Design and EMS. And bringing this back, Royal Ambulance is 1,000+ team members with rotating shifts, multiple locations across the Bay Area. We don't have a shared office or a shared time horizon, and having bad internal comms becomes visible immediately. If you were to challenge me and my team to kind of let everyone in the organization know about something, it would take a long time. You couldn't just stand in one place and talk. You couldn't send out, we don't have all of our team members, some of them, don't have employee emails. Most of them don't. So even just sending an email, which already isn't that effective, is really hard. And, we're really pride ourselves on, how widespread we are and how many people and team members we have, but it does create this challenge that we have that, internal comms is starting something that we really have to focus on, because it is the framework of how one person talks to it. If an EMT is in an ambulance, they're only talking to that EMT one day, their EMT partner that entire day. So their entire, Royal experience for when they clock in could just be one single person. And, it's really important when we're trying to build community and culture that our communication internally is super, super dialed and super, super intentional. This is probably the thing that we've learned the most. And I think a lot of us as leaders blame ourselves, being like, we have bad workplace culture. Well, how did this happen? Most bad culture isn't toxic, it's accidental. It's accidental because we forgot about it. It's accidental because it was a throwaway. It's not something that we, had this intentionality behind. And having it be accidental kind of like lets the culture become toxic. And I think that's where I talk about this intentionality with internal comms, that like, if there isn't enough attention paid to it, things can get kind of nasty, but it's super easy to avoid this. When leaders don't design meeting, people improvise it, right? You're never in a workforce. This isn't a live, growing physical object, physical being is kind of how we think about our employee workforce, right? If we're silent, it produces stories. It's not like a neutral thing. It's like, we're a leadership, we're out here working, like, what's going on? And, default culture is created passively and then treated as fate. We talk about this all the time at work, where, if we are just having status quo, that'll exist and kind of let things grow on their own. So it's part of us making sure that we're being intentional and owning a part of this communication strategy and really being intentional with it, that we can make sure that we're on top of these things and not letting it grow in a bad way, because we have a duty as a responsibility to our team that they're informed and they feel like they don't have to guess and kind of like make a culture that's not right for them. We want to make sure that we're upkeeping it. We kind of think about it as like a garden, right? You got to weed every day. You got to make sure things work in an appropriate way. So, again, back to this point, right? Culture emerges from what people believe is true, and belief is shaped by the messages they receive and repeat. And I think a lot of times when we think about internal comms, it's like this one-way function. It's really important that it's a two-way function, right? If we are kind of like having this dialogue between the two, we can kind of understand what they're interpreting from the messages that we're giving out. So this is kind of like these three pillars are really things that I harp on with our team of like, this is how we want to approach this and how we want to make sure that our internal comms is cohesive. This is kind of the framework that we've developed to think about internal comms when we have campaigns or messaging. Again, we run internal comms at Royal just like we do marketing campaigns, the exact same system with content and collateral and intentionality. So these pillars are signal, sense, and sync. So what are these things? So signal is like what we send with intention on a cadence. It's like the content we put out, the information we put out, the core of what we're trying to say. We're sensing, right? We're seeing what people interpret, repeat, and assume. This is incredibly important, right? How can we identify what our team is telling us, right? If internal comms is a conversation, we have to be good listeners as well as good communicators. And then sync, which is aligning our behaviors and systems so the message becomes real, right? How can we hear you, listen to you, and then develop and make our organization better based on what you tell us, and making sure that we provide a safe space for that. So to give you some context, right, in Royal, like we have this goal, which is to showcase Royal as a place to grow. And people don't really realize this, but actually being an EMT is actually a starting job to healthcare. If you meet a doctor or a firefighter, they probably started as an EMT. So we really see ourselves when we hear that intro of like, we're a workforce development company. That's the key where we are developing healthcare leaders of the future. It's one of our main pillars. And this is a goal that we really want to showcase to our internal team, because healthcare burnout it's a tough job. It's one of the toughest jobs out there. And we know that it's really important to have a positive attitude and feel like you're moving somewhere. And hopefully moving in a positive direction. So to showcase this, we replace these kind of one-way broadcasts with this two-way forum. And basically all that is giving us team members a space to listen and also be able to give us feedback on things. We shared growth stories and promotions in a place where people could react and respond. And we also use feedback and patterns in those responses as design input, not noise, right? It's always about that two-way communication and making sure that we are being active listeners as well as active tellers. So here's a quick example of a campaign that we ran, and it was our employee highlight campaign where we basically, took an EMT who has now graduated and gone past Royal and is now a firefighter, Judy, and highlighted her and talked about her journey at Royal and how she became a firefighter, which is a lot of people's goal when they're working with us. And what was really amazing about this is when we posted this on our internal communications platform, people were commenting and interesting. We gave Judy's phone number when she was comfortable with it and emailed, and she came in and did a talk and had sessions and really kind of created this intimacy with an aspirational goal of like, hey, see what you can do. If you work hard at Royal and do the right things, you too can aspire to do this. Your dream is possible. And, when we did this thing, we posted 11 of them, so it was a lot. We saw kind of the culture start to change. We started to sense it, and that's where that sense element comes in, right? Team members requested a way to get more access with alumni. So they're reaching out to their managers being like, hey, do you know anyone working as alumni? Is there someone that I can connect to? Is there, an interesting way in creating interest in work? We started to pick up on interview candidates, right? Our director of TA was like, hey, we noticed a lot of people have been talking our alumni stories and interested about this, because we were also posting them externally so people could also see. So if you're, someone who's an aspirational candidate, you can also see, oh, wait, I can also grow here at Royal too. And really, we kind of started to have this goal of, can we talk about us as a career launchpad? And then the end is the sync. So really proud of this. And we've actually, I'm talking about Career Bridge because it was something that has really got us into inspiring workplaces and kind of one of the things that we're most proud of as a program. And we did what we said we were going to do, right? We set a signal. We want to be an employee that develops healthcare leaders. We sense this urge and urgency to kind of like connect. Our team wants to connect with alumni and connect with external people. And then we kind of did this sync where we developed a program essentially based on their feedback, right? And when you do that, you kind of know it works because we have a lot of interest already. So this is a little bit about the Career Bridge program. Essentially what it is you are in cohorts and we pair you up with a agency. So for example, we pair you up, you'll have like a fire cohort and we'll pair you up with a fire agency. And what's super interesting about that is then you get to work hand in hand. You're first in line when it comes to interviews, you get to build relationships, everything is tiered. And this has been one of our biggest successes in programs. You know, we give people coming in being like, oh my God, we have to come to Royal because this pathway to where I want to go, these growth tracks are where I want to go are exactly aligned. And I can really feel this and identify with it. And again, back to the point, right? Communication doesn't record culture, it engineers it. And this is super important, again, as we're talking about this full circle loop, right? You know, communication isn't like, oh, I'm reporting on how things are going. It actually is something that can modify it and make it better or make it worse, depending on how much effort and energy you put into it. You know, when you say something repeatedly, people believe it if it's authentic, right? And what they believe is because of how they act. So if you're in a place that you feel like you're going to have career progression, and then you're with someone else in there in the ambulance for 12 hours that also feels like you're in a place with career growth, you both are going to be driven and excited to sign up for programs that help you do this, right? It's this whole circle feedback loop. And our team isn't going to take any credit for coming up with this idea because they gave it to us. We just gave them the forum to kind of communicate. And again, we're bringing it back all the way around, which is this idea of design the communication or your culture gets designed by accident. This is the theme that we talk about at my team all the time, but like this tool that you have is such a great power of being able to communicate with your team. Really, the ROI on investing in it, it makes their lives better, it makes your life better, and it makes the workforce feel more connected and whole. Really make sure that you're looking at and thinking about your internal communications in a succinct way. And that's my last slide. And that's the end of my talk and actually the PeopleFirst Global Summit.